Wonderful God, we gather in your presence here this morning, thinking of those that are in the midst of walking in the slippery roads outside. Lift them up. May you be with them and guide them, that they can safely arrive at their destination. We ask, O Lord, that you be with those that are hurting right now, for those in the midst of surgery this week, for those that are struggled with a medical condition, for those that are traveling as we speak. We ask, O Lord, that you be with those in the midst of this new year as we make a new beginning, whether it be in school, whether it be at work, whether it be with a resolution, whether it be a commitment to do something different and new and be renewed. Oh, gracious God, maybe it's a struggle that we want to put behind us. We just ask, O Lord, for your strength. We ask for your guidance. We ask, O Lord, that you be with us in these prayers spoken and also left in our hearts, but we know that they're brought to your table. We ask this in your name, thanking you for all that you have done for us. Gluttony. There's a story I heard once of a joke, really. A man walks into a restaurant with an ostrich. The waitress comes up to the man. He says, "What can I have for your order?" And the man says, "I'll have a hamburger and fries and a Coke." And then the waitress, and I haven't quite figured this out, but the waitress turned to the ostrich and said, "What would you like?" And the ostrich said, "I'll have the same." So the waitress brings out the hamburger, fries, and Coke and says, "That'll be $9.40. So the man reaches into his pocket and pulls out the exact change and gives it to him. Next day, the man comes in with his ostrich, and the waitress says, "And what would you like for your order?" He says, "A hamburger, fries, and Coke." Looks at the ostrich and says, "I'll have the same." When she brings out the order, he reaches in the pocket, pulls out $9.40. This goes on for several days. After a few days, finally came in again with the ostrich, and the waitress says, "The usual," and the man says, "No, tonight is Friday night, and I'll have a steak, baked potato, and salad." She turns to the ostrich and says, "I'll have the same." So she brings out the order, and the waitress says, "That'll be $32.62. The man reaches into his pocket, pulls out the exact change, and pays the bill. With this, the waitress cannot retain her curiosity, and she says, I've got to ask, why every time that I bring out the bill, you were able to put your hand in your pocket and pay the exact change?" And the man says, "Well, a while back I was cleaning out the attic, and I found this lamp, and I was kind of polishing the lamp, and a genie came out. And the genie said that I could have 2 wishes. And with that, I wished the first wish that whenever I'm going to pay something, I just stick my hand in my pocket and pull out the exact amount of the bill." And the woman says, "That's brilliant. I mean, most people wish for $1 million. Yeah, but with this, you'll be as rich as long as you live." And the man said, "That's right. A gallon of milk, a Rolls Royce, all I have to do is stick my hand in my pocket, and sure enough, the exact amount is right there." And then the waitress says, "Okay, I've got to ask, what's with the talking ostrich?" The man pauses, kind of sighs a bit, and he says, "My second wish was for a tall chick with long legs who agrees with everything I say." We're having fun here. I think one could say that we have been ravenous in our about these deadly sins. One might complain that we might be a bit excessive. Imagine Gilligan's Island, 7 castaways with 7 deadly sins, with the lessons from the Bible, but I think our thirst and zeal for all things godly will handle it. The knowledge gained from these lessons really is insatiable, almost overindulgent, certainly seductive in a sinful way. I was having fun with the thesaurus, could you tell? I had to look up definitions for gluttony. Oh my gosh, I had all kinds of lists here. This series, we're matching 7 deadly sins with the 7 castaways of Gilligan's Island. We started out with Gilligan and we matched him with sloth. Today we call that lazy. So we're following the theme of Gilligan the skipper too. And we matched the second with anger. But as we shared, it was really wrath that was the deadly sin. 2 sins down, 5 to go. Today, so let's go ahead and sing it. Gilligan the skipper to the millionaire. So we got the millionaire. Thurston Howe III, we've matched him with gluttony. A man and his wife were visiting friends, and the friends decided them to take him to a race course. The guy was fascinated by the sight of these horses just racing after each other, and with all the cheering and with all the betting, he bet all day long until he had $2 left. The following day, he woke up and prevailed to his wife to please allow him to go back to that race course and to bet that $2 to see if he could get the money back. And the wife agreed. Obviously, she didn't listen to Lauren's sermons, but it's all right. He bet on a horse 50 to 1 odds, and the bet won. The guy bet all day long, and by the day was over, he had $57,000. As he was walking back to his friend's house, he passed a gambling den. That inner voice that was with him at the racehorse said, "Go on in and just bet everything you have." So he goes in, and there's a roulette wheel. And that inner voice says number 13. So the man put $57,000 down on number 13. And the man started up the roulette wheel, and the ball went around, and the roulette wheel stopped, and the ball landed, and the man yelled out, "Number 14. The man walked home empty-handed. When he got into the house, his wife and his friends said, "So how'd it go?" And the man just said, "I lost the $2. So why the millionaire with gluttony? I know the arguments. I mean, Gilligan, he ate a lot. The skipper had weight issues. But let me remind you that matching 7 deadly sins with each castaway is not an exact science. Yes, the millionaire is greedy. But as I shared with you my mastery of a thesaurus, the definition of gluttony goes beyond overeating. It's larger than just a weight issue. Gluttony refers to anything excessive, intoxicating, boundless. It refers to overindulgence, overconsumption, a voraciousness to drink, to eat, to spend, to buy. Gluttony is an addiction to something. The millionaire, Thurston Howe III, is an example of gluttony, not because of his eating habits, not because of a weight issue, not because he had a lot of money. The millionaire represented gluttony because his focus was always on his wealth. It was always on his class status. In fact, it was always on his identity as a Howe. And because of this focus, it kept all the castaways on the island. Here's just a brief clip from Gilligan's Island.
You break the law. The whole thing sounds so darn democratic. But you understand the principle involved. After all, you're a man of ethics. You sure know how to cut a man, don't you? All right, I hereby officially place myself under hot arrest. Oh,
No, Mr. Howell, you can't go back to your hut when you're under arrest. You have to go to where are we going to put him?
I don't know. We've never talked about that. Well, there's only one thing we can do.
Thurston, you're a convict.
Lovey, I've been framed. I'll appeal. I'll take it to Supreme Court. I'll go even higher. Rules Committee of the Newport Country Club.
Oh, we don't need to see that part. Well, have you noticed, Mr. Howell is so focused on being jailed because no Howell is ever jailed that, one, he's going to take it all the way up to the Rules Committee of the Newport Country Club, and two, they missed their chance of being rescued. This is the premise of the show. For 3 seasons, these people had to learn to live together because they missed opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to be rescued. That's the theme for our sermon series as well. What are the deadly sins in our life that we need to be rescued from? What is the island that represents those behaviors that we want to change? What is keeping us from moving forward in a relationship with God? Paul says something about this when he speaks to the church at Philippi. If you can go ahead and advance it to the next slide, please. Is it clicking?
Do we have anybody that works on computers in-house?
Go ahead and put it on slideshow. Can you advance it to the next slide? Why don't you go ahead and read the passage for us?
Brothers and sisters, join in imitating me and observe those who live according to the example you have in us. For many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. I have often told you of them, and now I tell you even with tears. Their end is destruction. Their God is the belly, and their glory is in their shame. Their minds are set on earthly things. But our citizenship is in heaven, and it is from there that we are expecting a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ.
Nope. I think we're on that's the slide for easy worship. As they're working on it, just go ahead and listen to my voice here. One of the things that I noticed in the passage from Philippians is this words. Their minds are set on earthly things. When you think about it, that fits in our definition of a deadly sin. Throughout this sermon series, we are working on a specific definition of what a deadly sin is. It is anything that keeps us from focusing on God. As you might imagine, it doesn't move us any closer to God. In fact, it kind of moves us away, distant from God. It doesn't make us a better person. It is deadly to our faith life. Gluttony becomes the deadly sin whenever our focus is on earthly things, not on God. In fact, Frederick Buechner, who was, there we are. If you go ahead and go to the next slide, and then what will happen is I'll be able to advance it. Are you able to advance it? Well, it made progress. Frederick Buechner, who is a theologian, one time said, "A glutton is one who runs to the icebox for a cure to a spiritual malnutrition." Listen to that. A glutton is one who runs to the icebox for a cure to a spiritual malnutrition. Reminds me of the story of a man who hid his gold at the foot of a tree in his garden. Every week he would dig up and look at that gold for hours. One day a thief saw what he was doing and dug up the gold for himself and then stole it. And the next day the man, he went to gaze on his treasure, and he noticed that the gold was gone. All he saw was an empty hole. So the man began to howl in grief. So with that, all of his neighbors came out, and they investigated what was going on. And one of the neighbors even said, did you spend any of the gold that you had? And the man admitted that he did not spend any gold. He just stared at it. "Well then," said the neighbor, "for all the good the gold did you, you might as well just come every week and gaze upon the hole." Gluttony is that sin we use to fill our spiritual malnutrition, the hole in our lives. We fill it with food and drugs and alcohol, but it's not always what goes into our body. Glutton behavior is anything that becomes overindulgent, over-consuming. You see, we just came out of Christmas, and I had several conversations with people that found Advent conspiracy a bit challenging. I mean, for them, Christmas is all about buying gifts. It's all about decorating. It is all about the gatherings that you go to and you have it in your own home. We don't think of it as a sin. In fact, we kind of use the excuses. Well, it only happens once a year, or it kind of gets us into the holiday spirit, or we have to do this because it's all about the holidays. It's about Christmas. Take a step back. Thanksgiving. We think nothing of just shoving all that rich food into our bodies to the point where we have to loosen our belts a bit because we've gained so much weight. Fast forward to today, purchasing memberships to the YMCA is a record high. Resolutions to lose weight from the excess of the holiday weight gain. This is gluttony. No one can escape its grip. I've told this to the folks at the first service. For me, it is Skechers shoes. That is my gluttony. I have very narrow feet, which is very unusual for men. It is so hard for me to find the right kind of shoes. And so when I go into a shoe store or go into Herberger's, I'm always going to that section where they have Skechers. I look at nothing else because not only are they comfortable, they look nice, but they also make them for narrow feet. And so I have found a Skechers shoe store just blocks from my parents live in Lincoln. Oh my goodness. In fact, when I walked into that store, I'm pretty sure that I did not touch the ground. They had Skechers of every kind, every brand. I could go and I could find my size. I was convincing myself, well, I already have enough shoes, but I might need some spares. They kind of wear out. I was focused on nothing else but Skechers shoes. That's gluttony. Thurston Howell III, the millionaire, he was focused on his wealth, his excessive wealth and privilege. And he loved it more than anything else, except for Mrs. Howell, of course. And this was the hole that he kept filling, which was the comedy that we watched. So we're going to watch a video here of that.
Gee, I sure am excited. How do I look?
Oh, you look wonderful, I must say. You know your debut is going to be the social event of the season. Is Mrs. Howell busy making the last-minute preparation?
And dear old Dad, how much do I get for my allowance?
I beg your pardon.
Well, like all rich kids get. How does $10,000 a month hit you?
$10,000 a month? Well, that's more than I give Mrs. Howell for her pin. Oh, we'll talk about it later.
You know, dear old Dad, I'll need that money for one thing or another.
Am I one thing, honey?
No, you're another. Promise to get $50,000 for a new plane when we get back home.
You do what?
Ginger, we forgot the special dessert. Oh, we'll be right back.
Anyway, dear old Dad, I can pick up extra loot anytime I want. Right, Skip?
You're a tough cookie, Chief Thurston.
We own the minnow now.
You own the minnow?
Yeah, won the old tub in a card game last night. The moral is you can't judge a dumb kid by his cover.
You're a real hustler, one of the greats. Howell, a hustler? Thanks.
Let me get your stool here, dear old Dad.
Ha-ha! Ace of spades, eh? So, Howell the Fourth cheats at cards. Oh, a scandal for shame. Well, what have you got to say for yourself, you low-lying sea serpent?
Nothing. Us sea serpents can't talk. Martinis, anyone?
Yes, I could use a drink. I'm frankly astonished at this ghastly metamorphosis. Oh, never mind that. What about my boat?
Oh, keep your old boat. See if I care. Dear old Dad will buy me another one. Won't you, dear old Dad?
Oh, I could kill myself. I may climb up on top of my money and jump off.
Gin. And some vermouth. Yeah. There. Now. Here you are, Professor.
Thank you.
Sensational, huh?
I'm afraid it's a bit dry.
Are you telling me one of my perfect martinis is too dry?
Yes?
Don't you realize the Howells making martinis for generations?
It's too dry.
You're insulting the family traditions.
Never mind that, Gilligan. Make him another drink.
I will. What's a nice, wet martini? I'll give him a nice, wet martini. Here you go. Nice, wet martini. Here you are, Professor. Just the way you like it. Nice and wet.
Gilligan!
Buy him a new suit, dear old Dad.
Heavens, I've created a Frankenstein. Mr. Howell, I find the behavior of your son and heir shocking and disgraceful.
Don't forget obnoxious.
Yes, I may strike G. Thurston Howell the Fourth. Only in his mood he may strike back.
Surprise! Surprise for Gilligan's coming out party. Ginger specialty, a coconut cream pie.
I could use a pleasant moment right now.
You brought me a coconut cream pie?
Yes, Gilligan. You know, it was hard to make cream from
Don't
coconut.
you know my grandmother fed me coconut cream morning, noon, and night when I was little?
Pretend it's loganberry then.
But it's not loganberry. It's coconut cream.
Stop! Don't hit Ginger with that pie! Excuse me, everyone. I would like a word with Gilligan.
Don't you mean G. Thurston Howell the Fourth?
No, I mean Gilligan!
That clip is from an episode called My Fair Gilligan. It's funny because we don't expect that behavior from Gilligan. You see, gluttony overwhelmed him. He's smug, he wants more. The relationships with the Howells and with the rest of the castaways changes, and it doesn't move them any closer to getting off the island. When you think about it, maybe that's the goal of the writers. The network had to keep those castaways on that island. The castaways, when you think about it, should have been rescued quite a bit earlier. They not only had the richest family in the world, they had a famous movie star, and they had a brilliant professor. Castaways exemplified life. Their focus was on their daily tasks, like us. They're tempted by sloth and anger and gluttony. That's why we do our own New Year's resolutions, because those temptations fill our spiritual malnutrition. The rescue never came for them because temptations got the best of them. Rescue doesn't come for us because of those temptations. Sounds like us. Those writers of the show were geniuses. But the Gilligan's Island did not always show the dark side of the deadly sin. In fact, we see just the opposite. That episode that we just shared there, Gilligan didn't want the burden. Listen to the synopsis here. After rescuing Mrs. Howe, Gilligan is adopted by the Howells to receive all of their inheritance. Things begin to change on the island. The skipper has a hard time accepting that his little buddy has moved in with the Howells. But then the professor consoles him while mentioning that Gilligan could buy him a fleet of ships now that he has money. Ginger even increases her interest in Gilligan, but despite his good fortune, Gilligan still wants to help everyone with the island shores, but they gently protest his efforts, claiming they don't want to get his fancy clothes dirty. He starts realizing it might be because they want favors for him, so the skipper holds his rage. Gilligan quickly finds himself uncomfortable with the life of leisure and unhappy. And in fact, he has a dream that night where he's a prince and he wants to have fun, but he orders them all to death, and he can't enjoy in the games. When everyone refuses, he finds himself powerless to stop what he has become. That same night, he goes to the skipper, and they have a heart-to-heart talk. And they actually create a plan so not to offend the Howells. And so the following night, they're throwing this coming out party, and that's what you saw in that scene there. So what is happening here is Gilligan is showing the opposite of gluttony. You see, each sin has an opposite side, something that moves us closer to God, makes us a better person. So what do you think would be the opposite of sloth? What's that? Industry, being active, being alive. So yeah, your faith life would be active. The next one's really easy. How about anger? Love, peace. Well, the last one, gluttony, is virtue. Gilligan didn't want the burden of gluttony, where his focus was on himself. He wanted to focus on his friends and not himself, on earth and not those earthly things. He wanted to be virtuous and thus be a better person. I recommend to you, in our new year, that as we grow closer to God, we use this goal to fully embrace God and reduce those deadly sins that don't move us closer to God, and instead focus on the ultimate. And when we do that, we just may reach our goal. Amen. At this time, our ushers will wait upon us as we give back to God.